we're actually in an environment where there's a strong dialogue outside the workplace that is saying they can't make you do that. You deserve,
Mm.
and what I say is what it's going to, who it hurts the most? It hurts the extremes. It hurts the high achievers, the high performers. They will just, they'll just be working more. They're going to think they're getting freedom. And then they're going to find like, oh my gosh, I'm not that good at juggling my time. It felt good, but I'm working all the time. And they'll ultimately resent their employer.
So, Michael, can
The
I ask you, is that a
Sure.
pre-COVID, post-COVID thing? Is it a generational thing? I mean, because I'll be honest, I guys like business leaders like us, we have that fond remembrance pre-COVID of whether it's work ethic or the culture. I mean, Hill and Partners, your company, your special sauce was, and our company too, right? It's how we did business with each other. It's how we interacted. It's the way we collectively showed up. And so, are you trying? So, we're talking about expectations are falling short of it. Are your expectations that you're getting that culture back, or are you going, I got to create a whole new special sauce flavor?
Well, I do have some evidence, and remember, I'm talking about. Khalil mentioned, sort of the size and scale of this dialogue, and it's in a window of, currently 5 times the size of my organization. So 40 people across 3 locations is nowhere near as complex as 200 people
Right.
across 3 locations or 5 locations or in one building. And I have great respect for the need for there to be, sort of a vertical component to that thing, right? And a chain of command. And I actually can imagine both those things. So think of my company, relatively flat organization, right? So with the exception of me, at least post COVID, everybody's in it and on it, right? So if they take on a leadership role to be in it and on it, they're right next to the people that they're wanting to work nights and weekends, right? They're wanting that stuff. So what I would say to you pre-COVID is I would go like, really? Are we being honest? Or did we have the luxury of long running employment where we culled out the people that didn't match our culture? So people learned by having an idea about work where I'm financially dependent on my job, so I will stay here. And out of that culling, the funnel, 3 years in, you might look at who wasn't here, and maybe for every 3 people you had, one has stuck. And the reasons why the other 2 left may be circumstantial, had to take care of my mother, all these things, but they didn't stay with you through it all, right? In other words, they had a reason to leaving, and it may or may not have been just the circumstances. It just might have been quietly saying, I'm going to go work somewhere else that works for me. And then you're left with these tried and true, like hardened steel, like dragon slayers, right? And then we look at it and go like, people were like that. Now I think we're in this chapter with all this uncertainty, and human beings like certainty, and people are saying, geez, what would make me feel good? Well, what would make me feel good is if you had a company that had great culture and you put me first, like you saw me and you acknowledged me and you told, you shared all my awesomeness. And by the way, I can leave whenever I want because
Can
I
I
need to do
can I
me.
vomit on camera? Because I like
But
no, it's funny. I think we all, even listeners too, we're going to recognize somebody like what you just described. And I say that tongue in cheek about being sick because yeah, I've seen that. They're out there. And yet I can't build back what we need to. I mean, we are we are Marine Force Recon guys on the front lines of events. That's just my model, and it's not for the meek. And so,
mm,
um, I really don't mean this in any insensitive way, but you're right. We have found way more no thank yous uh, when we look to interview and hire than we are finding. kindred spirits and like-minded, PM warriors, right?
But can I suggest, Chris, that doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, we know that phrase works. So we can either do something different, but not really, just call it different, but have the same energy around it. In other words, I don't think this will work, but this is what they want, which would be large organizations that just decide, unlimited PTO, work from home, because they actually can absorb a year and a half to find out that experiment doesn't work, right? But when you're a smaller business and you want to be nimble, but by the way, the world is saying you also have to have a structure, system, and processes, which is good because that's the evolution of business. So what I would say, and I've already tried this, so I was like, okay, what can I do differently? But I want the same result. So the result I want is a high level of advocacy for the people that are on my team for the what and why we do what we do. Like, actually to believe that we create spaces and places completely about your brand through a process where our people become your people at a price not to exceed anywhere in the world. Getting them to say that and act it out and look like they mean it is not the same thing as getting someone who bumbles through it, but they totally get it. They totally mean it. They're just not the spokesperson, right? So what I've realized, or what I think is the case for a small business owner, like someone like you and I actually interview the people we're going to bring in our organization, right?
Yes.
So for you and I, we have to say, what is the language? What is the level of communication? How do we structure our offering and the experience in our offering in such a way that we cull out anybody who would try to pose or pretend they carry the same values, beliefs, and are interested in developing the level of, or the core competencies that we need to exceed. Yeah. And, everybody has a different thing. So that's what I've been trying to do. And that's with mixed results too.
What does that look like practically, Michael? Going through that interview process and trying to weed those things out as soon as you have a face-to-face conversation with them.
All right. So I appreciate the question. So the normal business practice is the sales funnel, and they apply it to everything. So if you have 50 candidates, this is the process you go, this is the language you use, and, and then you get down to whatever, and then you share the burden of interviewing so that you don't miss the things you don't miss. By the way, all of that stuff works until half of the candidates could be called instantly. And then you need a person with wisdom, a little bit of experience to go like, there's something about this candidate, by the way, who actually did jump 3 jobs in the last 2 years, but there's something about them. And so what I learned is, because I'm sort of a anomaly. And by the way, all business owners are anomalies. They aren't, they're freaks, right? They're unicorns, right? Because they're literally have the gall to say, I can do, I want to do all of this stuff. So anyway, when I'm interviewing people, I'm looking for reasons why this isn't a good match for them, not me. And then I hit them with it. If you say to a human being, you know what? I love your attitude. I like what you're saying, but I'm having a hard time understanding why this is what you would choose. Like, because you deserve your next best opportunity. And it flips the dialogue. And, I stumbled on it. And then you get a lot of sharing when you're like, so either someone advocates for it, or they go like, wait a second, this isn't how an interview is supposed to go. I'm supposed to get you to give me an offer so I can tell the other person you're offering this, because my life is about the next thing and the amount of money I get. You won't work in this industry. Like, you literally will not work in this industry. It doesn't matter how much I pay you. If you just look at, what you do each day for what you get, face-to-face engagement, the restaurant business, there's like so many industries where that's not how it works, in my opinion. So if that's what you want, go work for an insurance company or a bank or the federal government. And by the way, have a very dependable, predictable life with a certain level of certainty, right? Because you can do what you do, and it's no judgment. I just think this is the kind of invitation that it's not that it's special or it's awesome. It's awesome to us, but it's for a certain kind of person. And I am finding them in different places of all different ages.